Hi class, we're going to do a quick review of solving equations. So remember that the basic idea on solving equations is to isolate a variable and also to do operations on both sides of the equation where if you do an operation to the left, you're going to do it to the right hand side. Now let me rewrite this one, and these typically take like 1 or 2 steps. So you have x divided by 2 is equal to 7/3. And in this case, in order to cancel the 2, I'm going to multiply by 2 and by 2. So the multiplication by the 2 cancels the 2's, and we end up with x is equal to 7/2 times 2, which is equal to 4. Whoops, this is a 3. 14/3. So our actual solution, x is equal to 14/3. And that's pretty much it. Now, I'm going to just mention another way that some of the problems are solved in this section as you're talking about proportions, and this is by using the cross multiplication. So you have x divided by 2, which is equal to 7/3. Now, if you do a cross multiplication, this only works if you have a fraction equaling a fraction, and you technically end up multiplying these two and those two, which is basically going to give you the following answer. Let me put it in green. So this will be 3 times x, which is equal to 7 times 2. And this is 3x is equal to 14. And then you end up dividing the values of 3, the values of 3, which will give you the previous answer of x is equal to 14/3. And let me box it in green just because we technically approached it a different way, which is by using the cross multiplication. Once again, you may see it on some of the problems. And if you have a fraction equaling another fraction, you can multiply these two times those two. And that may save you some steps. For this problem, it ends up being about the same amount of work. So let's move on to problem B. And in problem B, let me basically do it both ways. So we technically have, let me rewrite it. We technically have x divided by 10 is equal to 5/2. And then let's multiply by 10 and by 10. And this isolates the variable. So in this case, x is equal to 5/2 times 10. On the left hand side, the 10's cancel. And we can simplify this one by rewriting it as 5/2 times 2 times 5. And then we can cancel the 2's. So we end up with x is equal to 5 times 5, or x is equal to the values of 25. Now, let me approach the same problem using the cross multiplication. In this case, you have x divided by 10 is equal to 5/2. And using the cross multiplication, these two will multiply and those two will multiply. So on the left hand side, you're going to end up with 2x. This is equal to 5 times the values of 10. And at this point, I'm going to divide by 2 and divide by 2. So you end up with x is equal to 5 times 10 divided by 2. And we already simplify that. So you end up with 25. Now, the property of cross multiplication may work best for messy problems. But on shorter problems, it ends up being about the same amount of work. Notice that here Multiplying by 2 cancels and isolates the variable. We just have to simplify it on the right hand side. Doing the cross multiplication, it seems like we are actually doing more work because eventually you have to divide, and here it's already been divided by the 3. Same idea here. We end up dividing by 2. The 2 was already on the right hand side. There was no really need of putting it on the left, but I did wanted to mention the cross multiplication that you may see in some of the problems being done. That's it for these problems.